Hello, everybody, and welcome to Harmony, our second annual user summit. My name is Nico from the marketing crew.
And I'm Sheetal from the customer success crew. We're so excited to be your host for Harmony. So last year, I don't know if you remember, but we heard from our audience how much they loved our incredible speakers and game-changing feature releases and the inspiring user stories. So we heard it so much and all the Harmony love was so nice, we're back here doing it twice.
There's always something so special about a sequel. The Empire Strikes Back? Portal 2? Shrek 2?
Definitely Shrek 2.
I knew it. I knew you were a Shrek gal. And now we get to add this year's Harmony to the list of stellar sequels. What's so cool about being a part of Zeplin is how our users create some of the best products and user experiences in the world.
Totally true. Companies like Apple, Salesforce, and Disney rely on Zeplin through every part of their product workflow. So teams can gain clarity on what to build, automate processes to ship faster, and ensure that the entire team is aligned on exactly what to build.
Which is one of the most important things in product design.
Yes.
Sound like you're in the right place? Here's what you can expect today. First, you'll hear from our co-founder and CEO, Pelin, about Zeplin's vision and what you can expect to see in Zeplin's future.
Then we have an exciting new product announcement.
After which we have sessions for designers, developers, and product managers. We have spectacular speakers joining us today, like Justina from US Bank, who will share how her team designed and launched a new mobile app that sees over $10 billion in transactions every single month.
10 billion. That's definitely no chump change there. And Roger from BP, he'll share his insights on design leadership and his journey to establish the value of design throughout all of BP.
And Limzer from Chipotle, who will share how some of the latest fast casual food trends are impacting how he thinks about digital designs.
Food trends, that has me hungry already. But I can't wait to hear from all of them. And of course, if you have any questions during the show, drop them in the chat or ask us on Twitter with hashtag Harmony2023.
We'd love to continue the conversation with you. But to kick things off, let's pass it over to our co-founder and CEO, Pelin. Merhaba, Pelin.
Hey, merhaba. I'm Pelin. I'm a product designer. I'm also one of the co-founders and the CEO of Zeplin. I'm super excited to welcome you to Harmony, our 2023 User Summit. We have a wonderful schedule ahead of us. Since day one, our goal at Zeplin is to help teams build beautiful products. When we first started in 2015, we were mainly focusing on the collaboration in between designers and developers. Maybe I was biased, but I was thinking that it requires only a developer and a designer to build a great product. But over time, as we work with more and more teams, we realized the importance of multidisciplinary collaboration. It's not just about designers and developers. It's about the entire product team working in harmony. This then led us to focus on a bigger stage in the product development lifecycle, a stage we call design delivery. A crucial stage that bridges the gap between design creation and development. Today, we have over 5 million designers, developers, product teams who rely on Zeplin for design delivery. When I first started as a product designer back in 2011, I kept hearing the same complaints from people around me. The end product doesn't look and behave like what designers intended. And fast forward to today in 2023, you can't imagine how much we are still hearing the same issues from product teams. Because while we are building products, we all look at the same screen and we all have the same release goal. But we all do and need something different. You have your developers that need to exactly understand what to build, how certain elements should behave, how designs are connected. And then you have your designers that need the freedom to iterate on designs without having to constantly explain things. And then you have your PMs that needs to make sure that everything goes according to the plan. Not to mention other folks like QA, copywriters. Over the years, we worked closely with our users, like we talked to hundreds of users, and we learned a lot from their challenges. Also from our own challenges at Zeplin. We've been building Zeplin around all these learnings about design delivery. How to communicate the design intention, how to collaborate in a multidisciplinary team, how to automate and scale our workflows. However, design delivery is just one part of the puzzle. We know that in every stage of the product development lifecycle, there are different teams collaborating, and they all have their own unique needs. Our goal at Zeplin is to be the go-to platform for the entire product team, used throughout every stage of the product development lifecycle. We want to bring the whole team together. We want to help them automate their workflows. We want to help them increase their efficiency. And ultimately, we want to help them build beautiful products. With this mission in mind, last year we said, okay, let's dive deeper into developer workflows. We started with developers because they make up the biggest group of our users at Zeplin. During our research, we met tens of teams who are building a library of their components, including Salesforce, GitHub, Optimizely. And their goal was to drive adoption for these component libraries, to increase the design system adoption in their code base. But they were struggling from not having the visibility on the usage. We kept hearing the same issues again and again. How is my component adapted over time? What new components are emerging and which ones are being used? If I update or deprecate this component, how would that affect my team? Am I making the right improvements? Today, I'm super excited to announce a brand new product to help address these issues. Meet Omelette, a component analytics tool for developers. Omelette helps developers and design system teams measure component adoption across all their projects and help them identify opportunities to improve them. Are you excited? Okay, let me actually show you Omelette in action. The first thing that we will look at is how Omelette scans your code base to generate adoption data. I wanted to show this on purpose because it's super straightforward. Here, I'm in a sample repo with React components. I will simply run Omelette's command line tool. Omelette scans your code base and parses your components to collect the usage data from them. We heard from lots of teams that they build and maintain their own custom scripts. Omelette takes care of all of that for you. And that's it. Omelette now has all the data it needs. Let's go back to our workspace. Here, I'm in our Stack Overflow workspace. Stack Overflow is actually something we created as a fake company at Zeplin to do all of our demos. Here, we are in our analytics dashboard. This is what you would see when you first launch Omelette. Here we see a bunch of out-of-the-box charts that shows you various adoption metrics. When we were doing the research, we asked teams how they are measuring the adoption, and these are the top common things that they were tracking. Let's dive into a couple of them. Here we have historical usage trends comparing the core and custom component usage over time. So here, if I look at this, I can see that we did some improvements in the last 2 weeks. Let's take a look at another one. Here we see the component adoption by project. At Stack Overflow, 6 of our projects are using our design system. Here on the top, I can see that Snack Consumer app, Snack Driver app, they are using our design system pretty well, versus looks like we need some improvements on the Snack blog. Of course, depending on your team size, depending on how mature your design system is, you might have different questions. You might be tracking different things. Omelette also helps you answer those questions. It allows you to create your own custom analysis. So let me create a new one. Okay, here I am. At Stack Overflow, we have two versions of our design system. We recently released a new version. We call it V2. I'm curious which projects are still on V1 and which projects already adopted V2. Since I want to report based on our projects, I want to analyze projects. I will pick projects here. Here we see all of our projects sorted by their components. So now I want to filter this by tags. Tag is a concept that we introduced in Omelette. So it helps you group your components based on different properties. Here I did it based on the versions, but it's completely up to you how you want to group your components. Okay, let's pick these. And since I want to see a comparison, I will break these down by tag. All right, we can now see that looks like Snack consumer app is doing really well with the V2 adoption, but looks like with Snack website and blog, we have some work to do. This is how you can create a custom analysis in Omelette. Of course, Omelette is not only for analyzing component usage data. It's also a component catalog for all of your components. So let's take a look at our component page. Here you can see all your reusable and custom components in a searchable list. No manual work. You can also filter them based on their tags, which projects they're from, when they were created, last updated. In fact, I'm actually curious the components that we created within the last month. Let's take a look at it. Okay, let me do this. Okay, these are all the components we created within the last month. So here we see large cart carousel. Looks like it was already used more than 20 times. Let me check that one. Okay, right now we are in the component detail page. On the left, you can see all the information about a component. Here we see how many children it has, how many times it was used, when it was created, when it was updated. And down the line, we also want to show the prop usage here. And on the right, we see what we call dependency tree. This is where you can see the relationship in between different components. So here, this is our component, large cart carousel. We see all of its children, and we see where it's been used. This visualization gives you the confidence you need when you update a component. You can quickly see where exactly it's been used. With this first iteration, our goal with Omelette is to help teams accomplish three things. The first one is measuring the component success. You have simply out-of-the-box charts to track adoption immediately. No need for custom scripts or ugly visualizations. And the second thing is identifying emerging patterns. You can find out which specific components are being created and used over time and dive deeper into which projects and teams are using them. And finally, making updates with more confidence. With the component dependency tree, you can quickly see where components are used so you can understand how a change would impact your projects. Let's hear from Danny from Genially on what they think about Omelette.
Hello, I am Daniela Torre from Genially, a tool to make beautiful interactive content for free. In my role as platform lead, I am always thinking of ways to help our product teams work more efficiently. I have found from my past experience that the value of investing in design systems is very high. We are more effective as a team and our products are more consistent. But maintaining a design system takes a lot of work. So it's important for me to have metrics to help defend our efforts. That's why I am super excited about Omelette. It's an out-of-the-box solution that scans our monorepo to track how components are used across our applications. Omelette does all the work of ingesting metadata and building dashboards, so I don't have to. I love that in Omelette. I can see which components are used more than the others over time. And that's very useful for me. The more a component is used, the less time was wasted building it from scratch. When we make plans to update the design system, Omelette helps us avoiding making decisions based on mere intuitions and agree on what to prioritize next. Thanks for releasing Omelette. I am very excited to see more updates in the coming months.
This is only the beginning though. We want Omelette to be an end-to-end tool chain for developers to increase design system adoption in their code base. We've started by focusing on providing visibility on adoption through analytics. But down the line, we want to go beyond usage analytics and support developers as they code, pointing them to the right design system resources. Starting today, Omelette is now in public beta. Check out our website, omelette.dev, to learn more and sign up. We also have an amazing session coming up with Hoshiki from Optimizely in 30 minutes, where we will learn more about how they are using Omelette. I wanted to end my talk by saying thank you to our amazing community of designers, developers, product teams. This is a very exciting day for us at Zeplin. We are not only releasing amazing new features for Zeplin, but we are also announcing our brand new product, our second product. Without your feedback, we wouldn't be where we are today. Thanks for all your feedback. Thanks for all your support. Let's continue to the exciting day ahead of us. Let me hand it over to my co-founder, Berk. He leads product at Zeplin. And Mike, our design advocate. They also have very exciting product announcements for us. Mike, Berk, take it away.
Okay, yes, thank you, Pelin. We've been waiting to take the wraps off of Omelette for some time now, actually.
Yeah, it's been a while. It feels really nice to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, it's like this big secret that we've finally been able to tell the entire public, huh? Yeah. It's like taking the wraps off it. Yeah, so I'm Mike. I work on community at Zeplin.
Hey everybody, I'm back. I'm one of the co-founders.
And today we have some exciting announcements. We're going to go over some best practices in Zeplin. We're going to dive in, and we're going to sprinkle in a couple feature announcements here and there too.
Yeah, before we dive in though, let's actually talk a little bit about how Zeplin evolved in the past 7 years since we started. So back in 2015, when we first started working on Zeplin, we were focusing on the handoff stage. That's essentially the main challenge we were trying to solve is how do you take some designs and generate specs from them? And then since then, obviously, Zeplin evolved a ton, and we are now focusing on a phase we call design delivery. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about design delivery, actually. If you look at a typical product lifecycle here, you have your ideation, design creation, development, and all that. And design delivery comes in right when designs are finalized, when you're ready to kick off development. And it lasts throughout development and QA as well. And the scope of design delivery really changes from team to team, but over the years we've realized there are a bunch of best practices that a lot of teams use, so we've really learned a lot from them.
Yeah, actually, we've talked to, I've personally talked to hundreds of teams. I know you have too.
Yeah, for sure.
And the entirety of Zeplin, I mean, we talked to thousands, tens of thousands of people. And I think what we're trying to do today is just share a lot of those best practices, a lot of that information, consolidate it, and give the common threads to you. and what we've learned.
Yeah, all of those practices, they're the ones that improve the overall team happiness and just the efficiency. All right, so we're going to dive into the delivery workflow, and we're going to talk about Zeplin specifically, how Zeplin approaches this stage, and we're going to talk about some of the best practices we've learned from the teams over the years. So we're going to talk about the 3 initial components of the Zeplin workflow. We're going to talk about finalization and change management. We're going to talk about organization and consistency, and finally, documentation. And as we do this, as Mike mentioned, we're going to announce some features along the way too.
Here we go. Yeah, so it all really starts with finalizing the designs that you want to deliver to your developer. All right, and design tools are pretty cool, especially the live ones that we have today, right? It improves iteration, it improves collaboration, but there's kind of this singular point in time where you need to deliver a design to your developer, right? You need to change that live design to something that's a little more locked, right? The issue is that today in design tools, people are doing this with some workarounds. So they might duplicate the design file or duplicate the designs. And the issue is that in design tools today, there's no native way to lock these designs, right? The other issue is that with versioning, the entire design file is versioned and not an individual screen, right?
Right.
And we actually have this quote from our friend at Bombas, Steven. I worked with him a couple times. And he said, Figma is very good for iteration and exploring. But the drawback is when developers need something to build, you need something that's more rigid, right?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And yeah, that's actually how the Zeplin workflow starts. What we do is the first thing you need to do is you simply publish your designs over to Zeplin. And what ends up happening is that by the act of publishing, you're locking these designs, and you're basically telling developers, hey, these things are ready to be built. And what's really nice about this is you can keep iterating in the design file, but the designs in Zeplin won't change until you're ready to share your changes.
So I have another friend, Caroline from Superformula, and she said to me, yeah, Figma is my playground. It's like that sandbox where you're getting dirty, you're changing a lot of things, right? But Zeplin is like the shelf where you want to display your work.
Right, that's a great way to put it. And let's also quickly talk about how you handle changes, because even if your designs are finalized, there's going to be some changes. And the way you do this within the Zeplin workflow is once the changes are ready, you simply publish them again. And Zeplin's smart enough to understand what designs have changed, and only those individual designs will update, and we will keep the version history for all of those individual screens. And yeah, and even when you're doing your publish through integrations like Slack and Microsoft Teams, everyone will know right away when there's a change. You can even add a commit message in there and tell them exactly what's changed.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, so as you can see, we're getting a lot of inspiration from developer tools like Git when we're thinking about this change management topic. And we're trying to come up with a version that's really tailored for the modern day design process. All right, in fact, we have an exciting announcement here. We're going to release a new feature today that will hopefully make version management, change management a lot simpler in Zeplin.
Yeah, that's right. And it was inspired by Git. Was it?
Yes, that is right. That's because when you think of developers, whenever they make a change in their code base, even if it's a massive file and they only change one single line, it is still really easy to tell what's changed. For design changes, not so much, because sometimes some of the changes you make are really obvious, and then there are these minor things that people just miss, and they never even make it to production sometimes. So today we're announcing version diff, which will solve all of these challenges. Instead of me just trying to explain it, why don't we just do a little demo?
Yes, big reveal.
Yep.
So, do you remember Spot the Difference in the Sunday newspaper? You would get the two pictures and you'd have to spot the difference between the two?
Yeah, the one where you just basically find most of the differences right away, but there are a couple you just spend hours and you can't.
Yeah, you get the 2 or 3 big ones instantly. They make you feel good, right? And then those other ones that are really small, you spend half an hour looking for, and sometimes you don't even get them. You just wasted a bunch of time looking for these changes, right?
Right.
Well, we're doing the exact same thing in our designs today. So let me show you. Here we're in the screen detail view in Zeplin, and I'm just gonna pop out the versions tab here on the left-hand side. And when I toggle between these 2 different versions, you might notice quickly some changes. Big
Right.
surprise. So we see that the copy on search result has been changed. And not only that, but we see that this bagel type name or bagel.
Yeah, that's a Simit mic.
It's a Simit.
Yeah.
Yes, it just looks like a delicious sandwich bagel to me. But the title for that has changed to the middle, right? And those changes are obvious. But maybe there's something that we're missing here.
Probably.
So if we go to version difference and we toggle it on, we can see, yes, search result, there's that copy change, Simit sandwich, hope I'm pronouncing it right. Now it's in the middle. But down here on our buttons, it looks like we have some highlighted changes as well. We can see that the radius on our button has changed from 8 to 12.
Right.
Like, whoa.
That would be pretty easy to miss.
That was not easy to see. Are you kidding me? Not only that, but there's an even smaller change. If we check out this icon here, we can see that the color is changed here. And those are 2 things that if I'm a dev and I'm looking at the screen, I might have missed those 2 things, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. Sometimes, I mean, I hate to admit, but sometimes these types of things you just miss and they never make it into production.
Mm-hmm. Or they do make it into production, right?
Which happened to us a couple of times.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about that. So that's version diff. It's a quick and easy way to see all the differences on your screen, no matter how minuscule they are. And not only that, you don't have to spend 30 minutes, an hour looking for it. And those changes that are really small, they're not going to make it into production anymore.
Right, right. So that is version diff, and version diff is currently in early access. I believe you can now check the comments for a link if you're interested in giving it a try, or there should be a link down here below. Or look out for the email that we will send out right after the event. All right, so we've covered finalization and change management. Now we're going to talk about the second piece of the workflow, which is organization, but specifically organization with consistency.
Yeah, that's right. So once your designs are finalized, that's when you need to share it with your developers, right? But you might think you're only sharing one screen, but you might be sharing a different theme of that screen, so light and dark mode. You might be sharing different variants of that screen. You might be sharing all these different things for that one screen. And so that one screen becomes actually screens to the n power. It's like this explosion of all the screens that you're giving your developers, right? And if you're handing them a design file, it can be impossible for devs, for marketers, even for other designers to understand what's going on in that file, right? You might understand the organization. It's kind of like your messy room when you're a teenager, right? You throw your pants in the corner, you throw your shoes over there, and to you, well, it looks pretty organized. But to anybody else accessing that file, it's like, whoa, what the heck is going on here, right? So the point is that we need a structured, rigid way to share our design files with everybody else on the team so that they can consume it.
Right. It's not just about organization, but you do the organization in such a consistent way that everyone in the team just gets the same experience. No one's lost.
Yeah.
Right. So as we were thinking about Zeplin, that's how we thought about organization. So whenever you move your designs into Zeplin, they're organized in a much more structured way. And we have a few features that will let you even further organize them. So here I'm going to talk about one of our users, and they manage over 10,000 designs in Zeplin. And how do they do that? They basically use some of these features that I've mentioned. So let's go through some of those. Initially, what they do is they use sections, which helps them group designs under different sub-features, like the sign-up flow or the login flow, the payment flow, stuff like that. And yeah, that's basically how you visually group your screens.
And you can actually, we actually have subsections now as well.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty recent improvement we made a few months ago. You can have nested sections. And next up, we have tags. So a common use case for tags is to mark the status of a screen. So you can easily tell, oh, wait, these screens are in development, these screens are still in review, things like that. That's a pretty common use case. And finally, we have screen variants. Like Mike mentioned, you might have a screen, but it's going to have like 10 different variants, the different breakpoints and the light mode, dark mode, all that. What's really nice about Zeplin is that you can combine them all together into one screen, and that's what screen variants does. So you get a really clear view of your project. So with all of these features combined, designers get a really structured way of organizing designs, and what's more important is that it's standardized across everyone, so you all get the same experience.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned tags, not scripted here or anything.
Oh yeah, totally not scripted,
Not
but we're going
scripted.
to talk about tags.
Definitely not scripted. But we do have an upgrade to tags that we want to show you today. So, like we mentioned, tags is kind of the way that you're wrangling that messy design canvas in a way that's easily consumable for all the different folks on your team, right? So, here we are in Zeplin in the dashboard view, and we got quite a few tags here actually. We got some sprints that are about 2-ish weeks apart. We have some locations for our offices, Australia, California. Sounds pretty nice. We have some different themes for light and dark mode, some breakpoints, and finally we have a status for InDesign. Right? But we wanted to go one step further with tags. We wanted to make it easy to not only group these tags and organize them, but also to create them too. And that's why we came up with tag groups. So here you can see there's a couple different types that we can add. And I'm just going to add a sprint type here. And our next sprint is actually on April 10th. Just go ahead and add that in there. And I can drag in my other tags to organize them under this group.
Yeah. You'll also notice that as you were creating the tag group, there are different types. So you know how I mentioned there is this concept of tagging the status of a screen? That's a pretty common use case. Another common use case is people assigning screens to different folks. So you'd have a tag called Mike. So we basically created these smart tag groups that sort of do some of this work for you.
Yeah, that's right. So let's check out the status one. Boom, there we go. If I create the status, you can see that, as Berk was mentioning, some of these are already pre-populated. So we can add InDesign Review, in Development, Released. We can drag in our InDesign there. And finally, we can add a member group. And assignee is pre-populated for me. I'm happy because assignee is very difficult for me to spell. I don't have to type it in. And then you can see that the most active members in this project are actually pre-populated too. So me, Berk, and Pelin. And I can go ahead and add everybody there. Not only that, but if I want to see the screens that are only in design, I can click my tag, I can filter, I can see these delicious chips here that are making me a little hungry while I'm doing this demo. And then I can see the screens that maybe I'm working on too, right?
Right. Just one final thing I want to add here is since we have these smart tag groups, we were actually thinking, we're currently working on an improvement where, let's say, Mike, some screen is assigned to you, and then it goes from InDesign Review to in Development. You will get notified about that right away. So these different tag groups also lets us improve the overall workflow and just add a little bit of things here and there.
Yeah, fantastic.
We talked about how we can organize our files and do that in a consistent way. Now we're going to talk about documentation. And I mean, design documentation is a topic in of itself. We could spend hours talking about that. But for the purposes of this talk, we're going to focus on the implementation details, the technical specs of the design.
Yeah, that's right. So it's important when you're implementing a design that you need the context of that design as a developer, right? If you don't get the context, it's kind of like you're getting dropped off in the jungle and you got no map. You're going to be a little bit confused and probably a lot lost at the same time. So if I'm a dev and maybe I'm building, say, a banner, I'm going to need to know how that banner behaves, what screens it's applied on, what are the relationships between the different screens, right? And not only that, but I need the information easily accessible on the screens that I'm working on. It can't be hidden in some dark, deep corner in the basement of my company in a Google Doc.
Yeah.
It has to be accessible on what I'm working on.
Yeah, that's the key thing we heard from a lot of our users. The documentation should be in context and it should be easily accessible from the designs. So that's exactly how it works in Zeplin. One of our friends, the company Amazon, they use Zeplin and they use annotations to document how certain elements in a design behave. And this is what annotation looks like. They are basically documentation that lives right on top of the designs, and they're the first things that folks would see whenever they click into this design. So it really solves the problem of like, wait, where's the requirement? Where should I go? And just people are much more. It's much easier for them to read through these documentation. So this is a way to document individual screens, but how about the relationship between multiple screens? Because we're probably going to have hundreds of screens, and that's where user flows come in. And companies like Disney and Washington Post, we've heard from them that they use flows heavily to document how all of their screens connect. And using features like connectors and shapes, it's really easy to just create that initial user flow and document the entire user journey. And we really wanted to build a purpose-built feature for user flows. So it is really easy in Zeplin to create these dynamic connectors and shapes. And what's really important though, it's like these flows get bigger and bigger over time. So with these features, it's really easy to maintain them as well. And finally, we're going to talk about what, we kind of know that not all documentation lives in Zeplin, right? So for those use cases, we want Zeplin to be built around your workflow. So what we're trying to do there is how do we connect the designs in Zeplin with the documentation that you might have elsewhere? And that's where our features like Jira integration come in. So you might be using Jira to track issues, and that's where you document certain things.
Yep, yeah.
We just want the Zeplin designs to be connected to those issues. So if you're in Jira, you can attach the design, and when you're in Zeplin, you can get a reference to that Jira issue as well. So today, we've talked about a bunch of different ways you can document your designs, and we're going to talk about 2 announcements that will make that process a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so last year at Harmony, when we announced flows, I think we were pretty ecstatic about the response that we got, right? Actually, tens of thousands of people created flows almost instantly
Yeah,
in
it was
Zeplin.
pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. But today we wanted to make it even faster and easier than ever to create flows. So let's check it out. Here we're in the Flows tab in Zeplin, and you can see that I have some subflows. So I have a tracking subflow and a payment subflow. Here, if I zoom into the payment one, you can see that I'm buying some chips, I'm buying some seeds apparently, and then the flow moves on depending if I have credits or not. And finally, we get to the payment processing part. And it looks like we have the branch for the payment is successful, but we're missing the branch for payment failure.
Yeah, probably that's not ready yet.
Yeah, so it's not ready yet, exactly. And the way that usually we'd be doing this in flows is by creating, say, a shape as a placeholder screen.
Mm-hmm.
But today we're announcing our new placeholders feature. So down in the bottom left here, you have this button. If you click it, there you go. You can add a placeholder screen, and I can name it Payment Failed. I can also toggle between different templates for this placeholder. So if it's an image, if it's a list, a gallery, or, oh, there we go. There's the arrow one I was looking for. And I can select that. I can attach it up to my design. And there we go. Even if the designer hasn't yet created this screen, I can add a placeholder to fill out my entire flow.
Yeah. It's also a great way to just whenever, I guess, when you start building out these flows, you quickly realize, oh, we've missed this use case, we missed that use case. So it's a great way to just add these placeholders, and then once the designs are ready, they get swapped out. And we're even thinking this feature could be very helpful to just build a flow from scratch. And whenever those designs start to come in, they can just evolve. So in Zeplin, you keep track of the whole sort of story from start to finish.
Yeah, I think what's amazing about flows is that we've seen people creating wireframes just from the shapes today, right? And we think placeholder is going to supercharge that workflow too.
Right.
Not only that, but there's more. After you create the template, you can actually swap it when your designer ends up creating that screen. So there we go. Now I have my payment failed screen that is automatically swapped into my flow there when it's ready.
Yeah, and your connectors and shapes, everything's going to stay connected.
That's right. So that's a new improvement to flows. And in the document theme, I think maybe we have just one more thing to show related to documentation.
Yeah, definitely one more thing.
Definitely one more thing. Okay, so here we go. Let's check out our Jira integration. Great, so here we are in the dashboard view of Zeplin. And today, people are attaching Jira tickets into Zeplin screens, sections, flows, and more. But we wanted to upgrade the attachments even more and bring in more information from Jira. So basically, Jira today is a way that a lot of teams are operationalizing their design to development workflow, right? And now I can see, if I hover over this ticket in my wish list, I can see the epic, I can see the ticket, the name, the status, the assignee, priority, and the due date. Actually looks like it's due today.
Yeah, we better get to that.
Yeah, I think we're late, actually. Somebody's gonna not be happy about that. But the point here is that all that good information that was in Jira, that organizes your workflow, is now brought into Zeplin, and it's even more than we had before.
Right, it's this theme that we were talking about of like, even if your documentation lives outside of Zeplin, is right here connected so everyone can get to it right away.
Oh.
Cool, so we talked about documentation, and but I guess the Zeplin workflow doesn't really end here. As developers continue to work on the product, as designers, it's our responsibility to support them even during development in QA. So, and Zeplin is used heavily throughout this process. Developers rely on Zeplin to generate optimized assets, to generate code snippets that are really tailored for their platform. And they even connect their code base to the designs in Zeplin using features like storybook integration. So basically they get the most out of their design system. But there's one feature that's used heavily in this process, and we've built it for developers, but then we've realized a lot of designers and QA folks use it as well. And we have an exciting announcement about that particular feature.
Yeah, the irony is that we built this feature for developers, and then we figured out our own designers at Zeplin were using it. And of course, we're talking about pop-out. So initially, pop-out was only available on our desktop application, but today we're announcing it for the web app. And we actually have a saying in Zeplin, which is, when in doubt,
Pop it out.
you gotta pop it out, right? So let's take a look. Here I have a development environment that I'm working on, or a local host. And if you want to use pop-out on the web app, you'll just have to download a Chrome extension, and then I can run it, pop it out, and I can compare exactly what was developed to exactly what was designed. It's kind of like version diff, except version diff was looking at the differences between designs, whereas pop-out is looking at the differences between a design and what was implemented, right?
Right. Looks like you have a lot of work to do there, Mike.
Yeah, I got the colors completely wrong somehow, and all the buttons are off. Goes to show what I know.
All right, so that was Pop Out. That was basically everything we wanted to share with you all today. So thanks a lot for listening. All of these things that we've shared, all of these best practices, these workflow pieces, they're all things we've learned over the years from working with thousands of users, and some of them are own learnings as well from our internal workflows at Zeplin. And where we are now, we really see Zeplin as a layer that sits on top of the design creation layer. So that's where you finalize, organize, and document your designs. So we will continue investing in design delivery, helping you guys build beautiful products.
Yeah, and we have a bunch of user sessions coming up with lots of interesting learnings. I think you guys are going to find it super, super cool. So we're going to kick it back to Sheetal and Nico.
Wow, Thank you so much, Pelin, Berk, and Mike for those amazing product updates. For anybody who's just joining us, Pelin walked us through a demo of Omelet, our newest product that helps developers measure component adoption across all of their projects.
Not just that, but Omelet scans your code base, detects component usage, and then surfaces that information visually so developers and design system teams can actually improve component adoption. You can check it out now at omelet.dev.
Sounds like that's something that'll help out a lot of teams.
Definitely.
I'm excited to see how that turns out. And then Berk and Mike, did you ever play Spot the Difference in the papers?
I did.
You
yes.
did? Oh my gosh. What about the comics? What was your favorite, Sheetal?
Garfield all the way.
Gotta have the lasagna.
Yeah, but oh man, Sunday newspapers were the best in our house. We were always fighting over the cartoon section. Those were definitely some good times.
For sure. But for the rest of the day, we have sessions for designers, developers, and even product managers too.
To view a different live session, click the Stages button on the left side of your screen and select the session you'd like to attend. There's also a Schedule button at the top that will show you all the sessions for the day.
And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag Harmony2023. That's hashtag HARMONY2023.
Really, the wink?
Yeah, it's like punctuation. It's like drives the point home.
I guess so.